the Pert Shrimp. Hello, in this video I'd like to show you how to tie a Pert Shrimp. In this example we'll be using a size 8 black Esmond jury hook. And to begin with we'll tie on using red 80 uni thread. So let's tie on, 3 or 4 turns to hold the thread in place, cut off the surplus, and then we'll use open turns towards the rear of the hook, and then open turns back towards the middle. Next we want to do the tail, which is orange bucktail. Put in the stacker. To get the tips nice and even. Now that's far too much, we don't really want that much, so just get rid of the surplus. Because you can have too much in the tail, a wee bit less than that I think. There you go. Looks not bad. Okie dokie. Now the tail is 1.5 times the length of the hook. So there's 1.5. Now I'll tie it on to the top of the hook, 2 or 3 loose turns just to hold it in place. See what it looks like. Yeah, that's about right. So we'll cut off the surplus. And wind it in. Okay, next we want to add 2 strands of UV pearl crystal flash. And add them to the top. Now again, these will be just short of the length of the bucktail. A couple of turns to hold it in place. And then double it over. And then tie it gently in. Back towards the middle again. Next we want to add a little bit of flashaboo, and again it'll just be 1 strand of pearl flashaboo to the top. And make it just short of the length of the bucktail. A couple of turns to hold it in place, then double it back on itself. And tie it in. Now we're not tying this really tight. As you get towards the tail, just use it to hold it in place, not too tight. If you go too tight, it splays out the tail. Okay, now bring the thread back towards the front of the hook. There we go. Okay, now we want to do the body, which is made from gold holographic tinsel. Down at the front, 3 or 4 turns hold in place. Now, because I'm tying this for myself, what I do is I put a little bit of varnish on the hook shank now. It acts like glue to help strengthen the body. And I'll wind it using touching turns towards the rear of the fly. Now again, for the last couple of turns, don't hold it too tight, because as I said, it'll cause the tail to splay out, which we don't really want. There we go. Now at this point, I'll varnish the shank again. and then use overlapping turns back towards the front of the hook. Then bring it to the top, over the thread once, again twice should hold it in place, cut off the surplus. Now I usually clean the scissors there because there will be a little bit of varnish. And now we'll do a couple of hitches to hold the body in place. Now usually I tend to tie 4 or 5 of the same fly, one after the other. So at this point I'd cut the thread off, varnish the body once more, set it aside to dry, and do another 2 or 3 bodies, then go back to the first one and continue on. But since this is just a demonstration of the fly, I won't bother. So what we do now is just turn back a bit on itself, and we're wanting to add the wing, which is black squirrel fox. Yep, that's all right. Hold the tips in your fingers and just pull out any loose fibres. Now, we don't want this to be any longer than the barb of the hook. So, about there. Between 2 fingers. A couple of turns, just hold in place. There we go, that doesn't look too bad. So we'll cut off the surplus. I tend to cut this off bit by bit. It tends to give you a neater job in the end rather than trying to cut the whole lot off in a whirl. There we go. Now at this point I'll add another dab of varnish. There we go. And we want to put a single strand of UV into the wing. So as you notice, I left the bits in the tail. So now's the time to cut it off and add it to the wing. Now this is to be short of the length of the wing, which one helps so it won't tangle later on when you're using it. So that's about right. A couple of turns over itself, a couple more turns, and cut off the surplus. That done, we can now cut all the rest of the surplus at the tail. Yeah, looks nice. It looks a bit long. There you go. Now, if you think that the wing isn't sitting proud enough, at this point you can bring the thread to the front of the hook and gather the wing, lift it up, and put the thread once round behind, and that'll just lift it slightly. Okay. There you go. Next we want to introduce the front hackle. In this case we'll just be using an orange bucktail, sorry, an orange cock hackle. So find an appropriate feather. There we go. I'm going to grab it by the tip and squeeze out the fibres. That done, what I do is I bring it up against the hook just to make sure it's not too long. In this case it's fine. And we'll introduce it to the top of the fly. Three or four turns, hold it in place, and then bring it back on itself. A couple more turns. Now grab the tip and we'll cut it out. There we go. Next, we'll grab the feather with hackle pliers and lift it up, and we'll just tease it back on itself, which will help when we're winding it on. Then grab the bottom of the feather and start the first wind. Now the whole time here we just want to keep teasing that feather back. Just keep teasing it back. One turn. Now I usually use 4 turns, but this is quite a fine feather, so I'm probably going to have to do 5. Again, it's just trial and error. You know how you like your hackles to be. I just don't like them too thick. Let's have a quick look. Now one more. As you're watching, I'm just teasing it, always teasing it back. Bring it to the top, hold it steady, bring the thread up between the fibres, cross over, keep the thread tight, and now do 3 or 4 turns over the top to hold it in place. Now we can cut off the surplus. I'll just check for any loose fibres. There's one. Another one. There we go. Now push all the wing back and the front hackle with your fingers. Hold like that, and we'll just start making the head. Now don't do it too tight. If you do too tight, the feather will splay out. There you go. That's great. Now just for security, I'll put one hitch in now. So all that's left to do now is add some jungle cock eyes. Here they are. Now what I like to do is remove all the surplus here. I think it makes it easier to tie it in. So just taking little bits at a time. If you try and take all off in a oneer, it could break the stem, so just pinch little bits at a time. One side done. I just think this makes a neater fly doing it this way. There you go, that's that done. Now I've already done the other eye. So what I do is we introduce it. Now what I do is I push it through the eye of the hook and line it up where I want it and do 2 or 3 turns. Now not hard turns, it's just to hold it in place so it still gives me opportunity to move it around later. Grab the other one. Again, feed it through the eye of the hook. Two or 3 turns just to hold it in place. And that gives us an opportunity to have a look and just adjust things. a little shorter. That looks good. So now a little bit stronger turns to hold the feather. There we go. Now we feed the stalks back through the eye of the hook. There's one. Got the other one. Grab them with your fingers, pull them back and tie them in. And when you've done the first 3 or 4 wraps, you can cut them off. Now you continue making the head of the fly with some more turns of the thread. Okay, when you think you've done enough, we'll do a few hitches. I like to do 3 or 4 at a time, 4 turns. There you go. Now cut off, and there you go, the Pert Shrimp. All you need to do is varnish the head, and that's it, finished. The Pert Shrimp.